Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to summer, right? Hot out there. Well, we're glad to have you on this afternoon. We welcome you to the Bartow History Museum's June Lunch and Learn. We're thrilled to have Ms. Kellogg here with us this afternoon. Before we get started, though, I have a couple of announcements. Things going on here at the museum I'd like to go over. On Thursday, June 30th, our next evening lecture will take place here in this room. For those of you that are new to the museum, we have two lectures every month. One, a lunchtime lecture, which is the third Wednesday of the month, and an evening lecture on the last Thursday of the month. So on June 30th, Erin Zavala will be here. Erin is an educator up at the Booth Museum, but she's also big into animals and what's that word?
Herpetology.
Herpetology, thank you. She is going to come and talk about Cherokee myths and legends as it relates to animals and reptiles, which is not unusual for us. What is unusual is she's actually bringing some reptiles with her. So if that makes you a little skittish, they are in enclosures. Or so I've been told, because I haven't had such a either. But that's Thursday, June 30th at 7 p.m. here in this room. I invite you to come out and learn more about reptiles and Cherokee legends. While you're here today, I invite you to visit us on the other side of this wall into our temporary exhibit gallery. We currently have an exhibit up called It's All Fun and Games, Iconic Toys of the Past. That'll be up to the end of August. It's a collection of unique toys and games from the past, extending probably from the, 40s and 50s up through the 1980s. So a little bit for a lot of us in this room that we'll remember. We also have a new exhibit upstairs. We've added an exhibit to our permanent exhibits upstairs on the African American Heritage Trail, which most of you are probably aware of. This project that took place here in Bartow County several years ago that culminated in this brochure. We've installed an exhibit up there to talk about some of the sites that are mentioned on this trail that I encourage you to go and check out and take on these with you this afternoon if you leave. Something special about this exhibit, I'll give it a little tease because I really want you to go up there and see it. We probably all know or at least aware of who Judge Robert Benham is. Mm-hmm. Well, you need to go up there and see the pair of water skis that are on the wall that he, as a child, and his brother as children, skied on as part of the St. John's Ski Bees in Lake Altoona, which was an African-American ski team that was based in Florida that came up here to practice and perform shows. And if you know Robert Benham, just try to picture him as a small child on those water skis. Unfortunately, I laugh with him often about, there's got to be a picture of him up there on those skis somewhere, but he's not passing up to it. At this point, I'd like to ask Sue. She has a special announcement she'd like to make.
I would just like to invite you all to U Harley. We have our annual U Harley. It's kind of a membership meeting, but it will be the second Saturday in July at the U Harley Museum. If you've never been out to U Harley, I would invite you to come out and see our covered bridge. We have a Black Pioneer Cemetery. We have several historical things out there. But it starts at 10 o'clock. It's free. They'll probably have some refreshments. And I believe someone is, I don't know her name, you say Emma Page, is talking about cemetery preservation. So I'm sure that will be very interesting. But please come out and see us. If you haven't ever been out to U Harley, just come out and see the covered bridge. Come out anytime. So it's an interesting place. Thank you.
If you've not been out to U Harley, do so. Like Sue said, they have a museum out there, and this is their annual meeting. There's lots of historical places and sites out there in U Harley to see. And part of their annual meeting, Paige Jennings will be here there to talk about cemetery preservation. Paige is an employee at Georgia Trust. She's a former employee here at the Bartow History Museum, but she's going to be coming to talk about cemetery preservation. And then teasing a workshop that she's leading for us in the U Harley Cemetery on July 23rd, where you actually get to get your hand survey and do some cemetery preservation. So look for information and more details about that coming up as well.
At 2 o'clock today, the library is having a speaker come in.
Yes.
That's doing a presentation on Juneteenth. They're having a display in the library and activities related to that event. Mm-hmm. So an hour after this one's over.
I think so.
We'll take care of it up to the library.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, without further ado, we'll get to our main attraction this afternoon. I think we all know Miss Kellogg, but I'll give this introduction for Linda. Linda Kellogg is the mother of 3 and grandmother of 2. She holds an associate in science degree in banking and finance and a bachelor of science in business administration from Reinhardt College. She is one of the founding members of the Reinhardt Tip-Off Club. She's a member of the 1883 Club at Reinhardt University and holds basic and general certificates from the American Institute of Banking. She retired from the Cartersville City Schools on June 1st, 2014, and is currently serving her 8th year as a student services consultant at Cartersville High School. So it says she retired, but I don't think that's actually the case. She is involved and supports her beloved community by volunteering as much as she can and wherever she can. She serves on many boards. She's a board member of the Cartersville Bartow County Chamber of Commerce, NAACP Chapter 5170, American Heart Association, and she continues to chair the Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration of Bartow County. Linda's an active member of New Hope Missionary Baptist Church in Cassville, and her favorite quote is one from Dr. Martin Luther King: "Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." Please join me in welcoming Linda Kellogg.
Well, good afternoon, and I hope that you will enjoy this lunch and learn something about what has gone on in Bartow County as it relates to the Martin Luther King celebration. If I had time, I would go around this room, and for those of you who I don't know, I would ask you your name, but I know I don't have time. But I want to thank you for coming, and then I see my friend and some cheerleaders who follow me a lot of places, and I'm grateful for that. But let me just say to you, when I began to prepare for today, I had to prepare and prepare and prepare, because there was so much I wanted to share, and you cannot do that within this hour. And so I had to narrow it down, and I have boxes of stuff in MLK that I have been able to clear out because of this presentation. So on the table before I began, I have every proclamation that has been signed in Bartow County from 2006 to 2022 proclaiming this holiday in our beloved community. And of course I put my picture up because that's how Dr. King looked when he got assassinated. And then I'll speak more about Coretta in my presentation. But if you would, imagine walking home from an all-white school. Imagine seeing the flowers blooming and the green pastures, and there were some cows in the pasture. Imagine getting home and eating a snack and then doing your homework. Now imagine after that, you ate dinner, and after dinner, you decide to look at your black and white television. When you hear something like breaking news, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has been shot. Imagine seeing that little girl shedding tears uncontrollably because she didn't understand. I cannot tell you how she felt, even today, and all the emotions that she had. Now, imagine going back to that school the next day, and you're an African American at that school. Things were said, jokes were made, but I never got angry. Dr. King kept coming to my mind. He got shot for trying to help somebody. He was not violent. He didn't like getting angry. And so I need to do the same thing. So ladies and gentlemen, that little girl was me. If the truth be told, that's when I discovered and decided my who, my when, my what, my where, and my why. Didn't know how I was going to do it, but that's when those things came to me. My who was, well, who's going to carry this out now? My answer was me. My when was, when can I do this? My answer was, as soon as I can. What am I going to do? Well, that was simple. I'm going to show love. I'm going to serve. I'm going to get involved in whatever community I live in. And I'm going to get an education. Where? Everywhere. But I landed in Bartow County. Why do I want to do these things? Because if the truth be told, I believe in all those things that Dr. King stood for. April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated, 49 years old. He left a wife and 4 little children. There were those who thought that killing the messenger would kill the message, but it did not. And it was because of his beautiful wife that his message and mission moved forward, and that's why I put her picture ahead of his. Yes, Dr. King was assassinated. And so I came to Cartersville, Bartow County. Now I can talk about a lot of things. That's why I have these cards, because I want to stay on point. But I landed at the Gatewood bus station on Main Street. If you're old enough and you lived here long enough, you know where that is. And I was hungry. And I walked down Main Street to the 4-Way restaurant to get me something to eat. I got on the stool and sat at the counter. I sat and I sat and I sat. I waited and I waited and I waited. And nobody asked me if they could help me. So, finally, a lady came over and she said, "We do not serve the N-word here." So I politely got up, still thinking about Dr. King, y'all. I didn't get angry. I got up, and she pointed to the sign that was in the ceiling that said, "Colored this way." And I followed the sign that led me outside that would lead to a window where if I wanted something to eat, I had to order it through that window. But I had lost my appetite. So I just politely turned around. I was hurt, but I turned around and I walked back to the bus station and waited on the person who was supposed to pick me up. Another thing I want to share with you is the Grand Theater down the street. We had to sat in the balcony, and we used to throw popcorn on the white people. And so I am a volunteer at the Grand, and when the director was carrying us on a tour one day, when we got up in the balcony, this feeling came over me. I couldn't understand why I was feeling this way, and the director asked me if I was all right, and I said, "I don't know. This feeling came over me." And I finally said to her, "Do you know if there used to be some stairs coming up to this balcony?" And she said, "Sure, I'll show them to you. They're still here. We just have them shut off right now." That is the way the African Americans had to get in the Grand. That's probably why that feeling came back to me. Then I began to work on my career, and I would apply for jobs knowing I was qualified. And there were people that I knew who got the jobs, and I didn't get them. Did it hurt? I hope y'all will hear me, yes. But did I get angry? No. Did I get bitter? No, I got better. So, that's why I believe that there's their side, there's your side, and then there's the truth. Because I was told that these banks around here will not hire African Americans. And I was working at Bartow Elementary School for a principal during the summer. And I came to make the deposit. And thinking of Dr. King, you know, there's the truth and then there's a lie. So I can talk about what I know. And after I made the deposit, I went over and asked where could I get an application. and she just died recently. Gave me an application and asked me if I had time to fill it out. And I said, sure. And I filled it out. And then I reached it back to her in her office, and I was hired on the spot. So I don't know what happened before Linda Kellogg went to the bank, but all I know is I was hired, and I had a job. So after telling my boss and giving him the notice, I stayed with Cartersville Bank, CNS Bank for 17 years until Dad died. So why did I tell y'all all of that? With those few little things, and I can share some more because I was in the civil rights era, but I will not do that today. But regardless of what happened to me, I refuse to treat people the way that I want to be treated. So I really got involved in this city, in this county, Cartersville, Bartow County. In civic clubs, I think at one time I was in every civic club that was on the book. Held positions, and got involved in nonprofit organizations, churches, black and white, and that's how I learned. That's how I found out what was going on in the community. Then I was asked to join the Harris campaign for governor. Why I mention that is because most of you know that former Governor Joe Frank Harris is from Cartersville, Georgia. Well, I went all over this state for him, heard all kinds of things that he was not going to support minorities and all this kind of stuff. All I know is how I was treated. But I want you to know that when Governor Harris got in office, he introduced a bill, and the legislation was passed in 1984. And that's when Georgia began observing Dr. King's birthday. And it was not without controversy, y'all. So that's when I decided, my mind get to roaming at night. I said, he's from Bartow County. No matter what other county in the state of Georgia celebrate Dr. King's birthday, we're going to celebrate in Bartow County. So I rally my troops, get a committee, and that's what we did. We have celebrated in this community for 38 years. I've been the chairperson for 32. I stepped down, you know, you get tired sometimes, you step down, and there were 4 other persons. There were 2 co-chairs and then 2 other persons that served in that capacity beside me. But then Commissioner Frank Moore, the late Frank Moore, called me and said, Ms. Kellogg, I don't think there were but 20 people in the parade today. And I said, well, that was 20 that we had. And he said, are you not involved with it anymore? And I said, I support it and I attend, but I'm not the chairperson. He said, well, I'm just concerned it's falling apart. And I said, well, maybe it was just this year. So what I did, when I heard there was a meeting, I decided to attend the next meeting. And at the meeting, I asked questions as to what was going on, because it takes an awful lot of planning, ladies and gentlemen, to pull this off. And so at that meeting, I was asked by the late Ralph Lowe and a man named Mr. Raymond Lewis if I would take it back over. And I told them I'd have to think about it. But because of the way our protocol was, they voted me in anyway and said, you get back to us. That was in October of 2005. And that's when I started keeping documentation and different things. Prior to that, I was not doing that. I was just celebrating the King holiday in Bartow County. But we have currently 15 committee members. Miss Crawford is here today. She has stood by my side. She's one of our committee members. And we've had 5 deceased committee members. And I want to throw these names out because they're dear to my heart, and they really were very supportive of whatever it was I was trying to do. And that was Michael Dean. He was a Cartersville City School Board member. Phyllis Harris was at the Bartow County Bank. Linda Everett was with the Commissioner's Office. Ralph Lowe was an administrator in the Bartow County school system. And Miss Oglesby, who we just lost recently, was a teacher, a retired teacher in the Bartow County school system. And with that said, I want you to know that you're welcome, you're encouraged, and all you have to do is contact me if you would like to serve on this committee. Now, let's talk about the history of this in Bartow County. We only had a parade for 22 years. That's all we did. I got a permit. We marched through town. We stopped at the old historical courthouse and we laid the wreath. That was it. That's what we did every year. Okay? Linda's mind got to thinking, I need some proof that this is going on. So I go to the commissioner's office, and that's how the proclamation started. So we would have a day where we would meet and we would get the proclamation signed. And I have 16 proclamations, so y'all can see that I kept up with it. That has every commissioner and mayor name on the proclamations. Okay, then we began having a candlelight service. I would love for us to do something and just be in the dark and let the lights show and have a moment to remember Dr. King. I love that service. I really love that service. What I want to tell you, there has been some dynamic speakers at that service. And one of them, my boss, is sitting back there in the corner, Dr. Philbot, our superintendent. But one that stood out in my mind was from Nigeria, West Africa. He was the brother to the Speaker of the House of the Federal Republic in Nigeria, West Africa. Now the reason I mention that, because that man worried me to death after that candlelight service. He just thought it was amazing. He just thought it was amazing. We had an MLK community choir. There were different people in it, and that's what we called it, the MLK community choir. But we evolved into having churches and groups and soloists coming to the candlelight service. This is not in any kind of order, but I want you to see from where we started to how we got to where we are today. I did not keep up with, nor do I have the records of how many scholarships we gave prior to 2014, but since then we've given 33 scholarships totaling $18,000 to students in Bartow County from all the schools. We've given 21 drum major awards, and if you don't know what that is, it's given to one person, and it's given to them only one time. And the purpose is it's a way to celebrate those who perform extraordinary, everyday gifts and acts of service and not expecting anything in return. And I tell you, some of the recipients of the Drum Major Award have touched my heart so, because you would hear comments like, I never thought I would be recognized in this community. I just do. And there are lots of people in this community, ladies and gentlemen. They're not in the paper, on the front page or anything. You may not know their name, but they're doing good things in the community. I gave 3 chairpersons awards, and the reason I did that is because Chief Thomas Culpepper and Commissioner Brown and Mayor Santini, I mean, they truly supported the MLK committee. So they received the chairperson's award. Then the committee and I began to think, we need to engage and empower these young people. I don't know if they know about Dr. King or not. So we began a youth rally. It first was at Greater Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church, and we later moved to St. Luke AME Church on Jones Street. I tell you, it usually was packed, and there were poems and flutes played and solos and dancing and just whatever. And then we would do trivia and we'd throw it in so we could see what the young people knew about Dr. King. And I must admit, I was surprised. So somebody's talking to them about him or something. Then we had one banquet, and that's the only one we've had, at the Hilton. And the Tuskegee Airmen from Alabama were our guests, the ones that hadn't died. And that was a special evening. That was the only banquet we've given. Now, I want you to know, speaking of you, Harley, we've had mayors from every municipality in Bartow County to attend the wreath laying ceremony and other events, except for one. And I'm really, really proud of that, because a lot of times we do things we think about just as Cartersville mayor and the commissioner, but I invited those other mayors and they showed up. Now, I want to tell you something, and most of you may know Reverend Louis Tonsmeyer, who's currently serving on our MLK committee. If you don't know him, I'll just throw this out. He's a former school board member, and he was there during the time when President of the school board, Reverend Eugene Mitchell, and he had to carry us through that smooth transition of integration. And I declare, I think that's why ours went so smooth. And some of you may know him because he founded the Community Diversity Council here, where every 4th Monday we meet at the Civic Center and people come from all over Bartow County. We talk about issues just in Bartow County. And then he was a former city councilman here with the city of Cartersville. But why am I telling you all of that is because at the candlelight service in 2016, that year he and his wife were the grand marshals. And if you don't know about Daily Tribune, they just send you these questions and expect you to answer them right then. And there was one thing that stood out in the paper that I want to share with you today. Reverend Tonsmeyer said, and I quote, "The candlelight service last Sunday night concluded with all who were present joining hands and singing, 'We Shall Overcome.' The members of the MLK committee were standing directly in front of me. As we sang together, we made it a point to look into the faces of those standing so near. There were tears in our eyes. How privileged we were to look into the face of each other and remember that all of us are made in the image of God, that old wrongs can be forgiven, and how honored we were to be in their presence." I thought about that. Yeah, we hold hands. The committee's in front. The audience is out there. And we sang, "We Shall Overcome." Some of you may or may not know, but just listen. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome one day. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we'll walk hand in hand someday. God is on our side. God is on our side. God is on our side. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe God is on our side. So we shall overcome, and we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Also, at that candlelight service, we would begin by singing the Negro National Anthem, which is Lift Every Voice and Sing. And we would end by singing We Shall Overcome. But when we're at the parade and the wreath laying, we sang the national anthem. So, I like to think that that also shows how we're evolving. Because, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed? Y'all know. So, at the candlelight service, those in attendance would stand up, and we would do a pledge in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King and his life and his work. And these aren't just words. And to hear it said in unison is a beautiful picture. And I want you to listen to these. I pledge to do everything that I can to make America and the world a place where equality and justice, freedom and peace will grow and flourish. I pledge to make nonviolence a way of life in my dealings with all people. I will reject all forms of hatred, bigotry, and prejudice, and I will embrace the values of unconditional, universal love, truthfulness, courage, compassion, and dedication that empowered Dr. King. I would dedicate my life to creating the beloved community of Dr. King's dream, where all people can live together as sisters and brothers. And then we would say, on January, whatever the date was, I, and everybody say their name, commit myself to living the dream by loving, not hating, showing understanding, not anger, making peace, not war, and helping freedom exist for all people everywhere in the world. That was at the candlelight service. As I continue, we've had wonderful support from this community. Pastors, all churches, black and white. Businesses, not just food and finances, but vehicles from the dealership. Schools, we've had the bands from different schools, the JROTC programs, students singing the national anthem, students playing taps, and the candlelighters are students from different schools in the county. The commissioners, the proclamations, all I have to do is call. Even on the wreath laying day, which is a holiday, the county employee set it up and put the speaker in the podium, and that's a holiday for them. Commissioner Taylor began a few years back by remembering all those who had died the previous year. And he would call those people names, and we would have a moment of silence. But then the pandemic hit. We would have been at the wreath laying ceremony right now if he had called all the names. So we just paused for a moment of silence. The mayors, in addition to the proclamation, I have every one of Mayor Santini's speeches that he has ever given. The police chiefs, they kept us safe. There were some anticipated problems one year, and I was really concerned. But after meeting with the chief, he assured me that they had our backs, and he kept us safe. And that was under Chief McCain, Chief Culpepper, and now Chief Frank McCann. The sheriff department, they would come up the back of the parade. So if anything going back there, they're back there. And also, they have an honor guard, and they would also participate. And there was somebody who would play taps from time to time. We've had many elected officials, some local and some not even from this community, have been involved and calls often. And the media, I cannot say enough about the media. I used to have to beg to be heard, and now they're like a hawk. I mean, it is, I don't even have to tell them when we're going to begin for next year. They're contacting me, asking me, and that is the truth, and I cannot thank them enough. The MLK Celebration Committee, we don't have a lot of expenses. We don't get paid, but we have to pay for the Civic Center, and we have to pay for the plaques that we give the drum majors, and sometimes we have to buy extra candles. And sometimes we give our speakers love offerings, and a lot of times they give it back. So, with that said, when we were marching through town, and we would do the wreath laying and get back to the Civic Center, it seemed like everybody just disappeared. And so we came up with the idea to have a brotherhood program. And we have a speaker at the Civic Center, and hopefully it's the kind of speaker, because I have talked to them, that gives us an encouraging and hopeful message. Then we also have somebody that maybe sing or something like that. And then we have a big birthday cake, say happy birthday, Dr. King. There's an awesome food committee, and they have a spread, like a reception, so nobody won't leave hungry. And that's how we end. And the pastor usually pray and do the benediction, and that's how we end. So, as I pause to see if you have any questions, I just want to read this to you. I love most of Dr. King's quotes, but this one, in my bathroom, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And I truly believe that. And as I told them Saturday night upon receiving the humanitarian award, I'm great because I'm a servant. And I'm proud to say that to you today because I love serving. And I'm going to pause right now before I say these closing things to see if any of you have any questions or comments. Well, yes, ma'am?
I might have missed this as you were talking, but what year did you put in your application to the bank and got hired?
1971. 1971. As a matter of fact, I see one of my boss's sister who works for this museum, who I dearly loved and learned a lot from the loan department under his tutorage. Thank you. That was a good question. Ms. Fatima.
I just have a comment. I always follow you in the media. I've been away for a while, long time. I moved back, was following. And I wonder why you had such a passion. And when you shared your story, it just resonated.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, some of you know, and Trey, I'm not going to get on there, but some of you don't know my history as a child. And that is really, in addition to Dr. King, that is really who has made me who I am. I know what it feels like. I mean, I've been called names, I've been discriminated against, but I refuse to get bitter. And that's how I taught my children. And so, I have some pictures up here when we end. If anybody want to look through and see, you may have it in your mind, but it will show you a lot of these, how big the parades were and some of the drum majors. It's not all of them. I just grabbed a few. And I made a booklet because when Coretta Scott King died, that's how I got through it. I created this booklet, and I have many things about her life in that booklet. So, but she is the one. And then President Reagan finally signed the national holiday, but it was because of her that we have a national holiday. And for those of you who don't know it, the last state just began observing Dr. King's holiday in 2000. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am? Okay, then I'm really glad you asked that. In 2021, we had to cancel due to the pandemic because, crowds couldn't come together. That was a sad day for me, but I respect what they say we need to do. But the committee and I got together and we decided the third Monday is the holiday every year. Dr. King's birthday is January 15th. But we decided, along with Mayor Santini, that we would still hold the wreath laying. So 2021, we only did a wreath laying ceremony at the Frank Moore Administration Building. Then in 2022, we decided, well, we probably need to do that again. Even though the parade, you might want people to separate, but you can't, people might be up close to everybody. And like I said, I was respecting what CDC and all the other people were saying and our local health people were saying. So we decided to have a wreath laying ceremony in 2022. But a weather situation happened. And everybody was saying we need to cancel. And I tell you, I got on the radio at the last minute and put things on Facebook, but everybody don't get that stuff. People showed up at the ceremony. I had people calling me from the ceremony, but we had to postpone that. I talked to the commissioner, and he has people on his staff who keep up with this weather stuff. And then I talked to Mayor Santini, so we decided to err on cautious of being safe, okay? So we didn't have it in 2022, and I do miss it. But we're gearing back up. I already got some people lined up, but we hope we get to have it this year, okay? Any other questions? Okay. So you might ask yourself, and you may have already done this before today, has the dream been fulfilled? Or is there still work to do? I tell you that there's a lot of work to do. But ladies and gentlemen, if you don't remember anything that I've said today, I really hope you remember this. I live in Bartow County. I can't see myself going to other communities telling them what to do. I want to make a difference here. I want to make Bartow County a better place. And maybe others will want to be like Bartow County. And I tell you, I can't give you the stats now. There are others who were calling during integration wondering why ours was going so smooth. So with that said, that's why I'm not on Fox 5 and Channel 2, who has called me many times to come and do our parade and all this stuff. That looks good if you're looking on TV. Gosh, we're on TV. But I'm trying to make a difference in this community. I don't want it to get out of hand. I don't want everybody to start talking about Fox 5 News and WSB. I want to make a difference here, and that's what I'm trying to do. So I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation, and if it wasn't limited time, you could be here with me 3 hours, and I can give you many more stories. But I hope you learned something about the history, not what's going on at the King Center and other communities. I wanted you to know about how the MLK celebration was birthed in Bartow County and how it has evolved into what it is today. And I thank you for listening. And I'm up here if anybody needs my contact information. Thank you.
Right on time, right? We do have a few minutes if we have a question or two that you have your hand raised.
Did you have anything to do with the naming of the street that is named Martin Luther King Drive? I mean,
No, I did.
do we know how that got?
You know, that's something for me to do. No, I do not. I know how Governor Harris's, Joe Frank Harris Parkway came about, and I know how Chief Justice Benham, but I will find that out. And you're at the library, right? Okay.
No, I'm with the Friends of the Library, so I have nothing.
Well, I'll find you, okay? Okay. That's a very good question.
I was just wondering if you had a website or if there was a way like to make a donation to the scholarship fund.
No, we have a poster. We have a website, but there's not anything on the website that you can, these technology people and these QR codes and all that stuff. Ms. Kellogg hadn't gotten there yet, but we do have a post office box where a lot of people mail their donations. And by the way, they are tax deductible.
I only came to Bartow County in 2014, and I've never been to the parade. But when you start up again, I am going to come because just the history of what you've gone through.
Well, thank you.
Has made me want to go. And I did see you. I was there Saturday night.
Oh, okay. Well, we welcome you to come, and I want you to know from 1984, and although it might have looked like an African American parade, but that's not what Dr. King was about. So we just had to keep getting the message out there, and it's diverse now, and it has evolved. And like I said, I'm really proud of Cartersville Bartow County.
What was the last state that adopted the holiday?
Utah.
We're betting on something interesting.
I discovered that in making this presentation in 2000.
I was wondering how old you were when you came in on the bus.
15. And do I have a few minutes? No. I can't get into all of this, but I had flown from Detroit to Atlanta. I was living with a foster family up there, and I had been down here the summer before, and I thought I fell in love, okay? And so I was flying here. I had written his mom, and they had sent me the money, and they discussed it with my the people who I was living with. And so I flew here, and then when my father-in-law would get off of work at Alatoona, he was going to pick me up at 4 o'clock, so that's why I had that hour to kill, and I was hungry. And so that's how I landed in Cartersville. I was coming to visit my then mother-in-law and father-in-law.
I was just curious at what age you were.
Yes, I was 15.
One thing that several of us that are older, these dates when Martin Luther King, I remember, was very at that time. JFK, a lot of our young kids today don't remember. We don't know where we were and what happened and how it struck us. And we need to keep that history alive. And doing things like this just brings that forward and makes it for sure too.
You're absolutely right, and maybe because of my experiences, that's why I made it part of my parenting And I talked to my children about it and read books to them about it.
People are born after 68.
But I'm an avid reader anyway, so I just began reading a whole lot about him too, and so.
So interestingly enough, you saying that about teaching young kids about it, I kind of have to brag on us. I think as I will say, Sarah and Jordan back here are our education staff, and Valerie from Noble Hill,
Okay.
and Alexis from Summerhill, even though they're not here recently. Well, back in February, we did a field trip with Cartersville's fifth grade on the 1960s specifically. And when you were talking about going home, you asked us to imagine that. You were like, imagine breaking news breaking through. And it was Sarah's idea to have it happen like this. We had a field trip set up with the kids upstairs, sat around like all of our old TVs and radios. Like, imagine you're like at your mom's house, your grandparents' house, and you're like she's watching her stories. That was specifically as it was. And we had like a snippet of As the World Turns playing beforehand. And it broke through with the Kennedy assassination, like, you know, breaking through. And then Martin Luther King's assassination and the Robert Kennedy assassination specifically, and what it would have felt like to be there. Because that is something, you know, I think that the kids couldn't experience that. They didn't know what it would have looked like. And it was all in black and white. And I think you specifically did a good job of being like, now imagine there's only 3 channels. You can't change the channel. And you know if it breaks through, it's something really bad.
That's right.
And getting the kids in that kind of mindset, that like, and watching their faces as that happened, they were like, what? Like just seeing it. And I think it really kind of got them into to understanding what that kind of stuff. And Jordan was a big part of putting that program together. And so.
Teacher, we got the names of Congress people who had voted for or against integration. The kids were so moved by the program that they actually found their addresses and wrote to them, and they thanked the people who had voted for integration, and they asked the people who hadn't why they felt they should not vote.
Yeah, they were the ones that were still alive. They started writing them letters when they got back to school, being like, "Why did you vote against this?" And I was like, "Whoa!" They went straight for it, and so it was really impactful for us to see that just one field trip here, they immediately went back to school and were like, "Can we contact former Congress people? Like, can we do that?" And we were like, "Go for it."
Well, that's the Bartow History Museum is an asset to Cartersville, Bartow County, and also we just our leadership team at our school just went through with Alexis the tour, you know, the African American Trail and the Summerhill Heritage. It's what you want to do now at Cartersville High School, and I see some of my coworkers and my boss here. I talk about Martin Luther King a lot at Cartersville High School with students. And so in these pictures, you'll see even my granddaughter, who does not live here, she comes to participate in the parade. And when I was getting this ready for you all, I see her in the parade with this picture that she has drawn of Dr. Martin Luther King, which did not look like him. And she had this poster that said, "Love one another." And I guess the media must have caught it. I really never paid that any attention until I was preparing this for you. And so I will leave this with you. The following day when she went back to school in Cobb County, they always have to share what they do on the weekend. And that's what she shared. But she just was going to say, I went to my nene's town and I was in the parade. But the teacher asked her to talk about it. And so she shared some stuff. You don't know her, she can talk. She's 8 years old, but she can talk. Well, thank you, Trey, so much. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Linda, for being here and for your work. You're an inspiration to us all.
Thank you.
And if you've not been to the MLK celebration in January, the service they have, it's a very uplifting service. I encourage you to attend that next year. I hope you'll have it next year.
We're planning on it.
Thank you all for coming out this afternoon. Like I said, at the onset, you're welcome to stick around, check out the museum exhibits upstairs. Make sure you see our new exhibit on the African American Heritage Trail and our exhibit here on our temporary gallery downstairs. Thank you all for coming. We'll hope to see you again soon.